Welcome to the fourth and final episode of the Portuguese road trip, which really could have just been one episode, but I thought I'd string it out. Unfortunately, we only spent 3 days in this area, but really could have spent weeks exploring Sagres. It was absolutely amazing. First day, we borrowed some bikes from the hotel and managed just about to make it to the Sagres fortress without getting blown off. The winds were really intense, and I can still feel my ears ringing now. The following day, we head to Cabo de San Vicente, where we had to battle yet more headwinds, which was super intense, but really some amazing dramatic scenery. And also an erotic hot dog stand, which was pretty unique. The final day was unfortunately spent driving back to Lisbon, but we managed to briefly stop off at the most beautiful beach I've ever seen. So enjoy the video. Arriving too early for check-in, we sat outside and enjoyed the sun and some of the intense wind. After check-in, we headed to the fortress, Sagres, which you can't find that much information about, but it was incredibly windy. That's the main takeaway. So shot some of these photos outside the fortress of the wall, and then we made our way in. Inside the fortress was surprisingly big, and it was incredibly windy, as you can see. Ears were ringing for like a day after this. It was quite uncomfortable. Came kind of unprepared for this trip, so I shot some Lomo 800, which was probably not the best idea midday, as some of these turned out pretty overexposed. Views are stunning there. There wasn't a load of vegetation growing. I'm no botanist, but I guess it's too windy for the plants to take root. It had its own little lighthouse, which I'd grown really fond of seeing over Portugal. They're just so stereotypical lighthouse colours and looks. Showing how windy it was there, you can see this little tumbleweed making its way across the kind of arid landscape. This big weird circular maze was pretty interesting. You could go into the middle and there was like a hole at the bottom where you could hear the waves crashing below. Not the most safe thing to be standing on, but pretty cool. You also probably noticed these weird colour casts in the middle. This is from my scanning. I'm not really sure what I was doing wrong. Kept trying to scan it differently, but it kept getting this yellow cast in the middle. And I also didn't want to rescan them, so yeah, you can enjoy that.
Jesus! Come, pedal!
As a reward for struggling through the wind, we stopped off at this organic, natural restaurant where we had some natural wines, and regardless of what Piper's face shows, they were delicious. We then went back, got changed, and went back there for dinner. It was so nice. Next morning, we made our way to probably the most famous lighthouse in Portugal, Cabo de San Vicente. I was pretty excited for this, so I took like 5 cameras. Unfortunately, the lighthouse was under construction, but got to see this pretty iconic hot dog stand, so there's that. Looking out towards the sea, that massive expanse of nothingness, you can see why they thought it was the edge of the old world. There really is nothing there apart from sea for miles and miles and miles. That day, I'm not sure if it's normal or because of the high winds, but these clouds are just flying past us, and these little wispy ones anyway, and there's a really heavy one on top of the whole of the lighthouse, which added some cool dramatic effect. Shot mostly black and white, which was Acros 2. I had a red filter on, so I think that's why the sea is so black, and I really like that contrast. I think it looks really good, especially when you see a little sailboat with its white sail out. Because it was midday and we didn't fancy driving back for sunset, most of these came out fine, but nothing spectacular with the light as it was. This might be my favourite photo from around Cabo de San Vicente. I like this portrait of the action, and you can really show the wind with the strap blowing there, and the colours were pretty nice too. Again, it was so windy, even the birds were struggling to fly. As soon as they changed their wings, they would just get absolutely sent. And then here you can see that really strange heavy cloud. didn't come out too strongly in the photos, but it's still fairly visible. Leaving the lighthouse, we made our way back to Sagres. We quickly stopped at one beach just to see what they were like, but wasn't expecting anything spectacular. However, we were really wrong. It was amazing. These colour photos came out slightly overexposed with the sea, but I actually really like how the sea is glistening, and I think that overexposure is really nice. Getting that yellow mark from the scanning, but I think it kind of works. I think the colour really shows that heavy cloud, and that was one of my favourite photos. Heading back for about 3-4 o'clock. Took this photo outside the hotel, then walked down to that area where, again, windy, but loads of birds. Quite like that simple picture. And we made our way to this fish market where we also ate in and chose what fish we wanted, which a little bit barbaric, but also kind of see where your food comes from so you know it's fresh. Here you can see Piper battling with a potato, and also the fish we chose, which was a red snapper, and I can't remember that one. Then there's all these marine cats, which are sitting in the lobster crates, which was kind of cool to see, and hope they're well fed. For sunset, made our way just to the cliff next to the hotel. Pretty surprising that there's so many empty houses here. I thought such a beautiful place would be developed really fast, or at least these would get used somehow, but they were all deserted. Here's me getting battered by the wind, all in the name of photography. Shot all these on Portrait 800, and these are the sunset pictures that I think turned out pretty well. They've got that definite like film look, a little bit soft, quite grainy, and yeah, I really quite like these. Also like how there's the moon in all these photos, especially with that bird. More seagulls around the marina, maybe waiting for the fishermen to come in. But it made for a nice sunset view for me. Finally, having enough of the wind, we kind of headed back. My ears were about to explode at this point anyway. And then took a few final photos as the sun was setting, which I really like these portraits. I think Portrait 100 is great for skin tones, especially after a bit of tanning. As our trip was coming to an end, our roof dog greeted us a farewell from Sagres, our favourite point so far in the trip. What I thought was our favourite part of the trip actually was a close second, because on the drive back along the west coast we were greeted by one of the most amazing beaches I've ever seen. It's absolutely enormous, and there was almost no tourists there. There was these huge dunes, which you can see Piper running up quite athletically, and the photography was great. I just wish we had more time to spend there. It's definitely somewhere I want to come back to. There's a few vans which people were definitely camping in and surfing out of, and that would be an absolute dream. None of these photos did it justice. We were kind of rushed, so didn't have that much time to take that many photos, or photos that I'd really like, but I still got a fair few, and the red filter really darkened the skies in these for some reason. Not entirely sure why, but I do like how contrasty it is with the white dunes. After emptying my shoes with half the beach, we stumbled upon this cabin in the middle of the beach, which was pretty unique considering how big that was. There was just one little cabin with some drinks, which again couldn't really relax that much because we were on our way back to Lisbon and kind of time crunched. But you can see how cool it looks in these photos, just in the middle of beach, and then everyone hanging up their wetsuits. It looked really like surfer vibes, which really made me want to take up surfing. Drove up to the nearest cliff, where then we proceeded to take in the views from a higher vantage point, and you can see here how absolutely beautiful it is. It was at this point me and Piper really started to regret our trip route and wished that we would have gone down the west coast, which was our original plan, and just visited as many of these beaches as possible, surfed a bit, gone to some of these shacks afterwards. Would have been amazing. Piper drove back to Lisbon, another 2.5 hours. Pretty tired, so made the most of the outside escalator, and then ended up at a famous cod restaurant where there was so much cod and peas and potatoes for 2 people that we nearly threw up. But it was delicious and highly recommend it. Understandably, at this point, Piper had grown pretty tired of the filming, so I was just relaxing reading a book. And you can see how many films I was left to develop at the end of this trip.